attack on Indian forces in Kashmir since 2002. An explosion there that killed at least 39 people in Pulwama district in the Indian-administered part of the territory. India's Prime Minister has called the bombing of the military convoy despicable. Mohammed Jamjoom reports.
Multiple casualties after a blast along a highway in Indian-administered Kashmir, one of the worst attacks to hit the disputed Himalayan region in almost 3 years. According to reports, the majority of those killed were Indian paramilitary personnel when a car filled with explosives rammed into a military convoy in the district of Pulwama. The attack happened on a main road that connects the state capital Srinagar to the city of Jammu. Pictures from the blast site showed bodies and body parts strewn across a wide area.
I was sitting inside my shop and all of a sudden an explosion happened. It was very massive and felt like the building would come down. I came out and saw smoke at the site of the explosion and debris from vehicles in the air.
Kashmir has been divided between India and Pakistan since 1947. Both countries claim the area.
I think we'd seen this coming for a while because the Pakistan-based terrorist group, Jaish-e-Mohammed, they've been trying to get active in Kashmir Valley for the last few months, especially because a couple of indigenous terrorist groups like Hizbul Mujahideen, they have been more or less contained by the Indian security forces, especially in South Kashmir, which has seen a lot of turmoil in the last 2.5 years.
Tens of thousands have been killed in the past 3 decades in the uprising against the Indian administration. This latest violence comes just a day after dozens of high school students were wounded when there was an explosion in their classroom in Kashmir. Mohammed Jamjoom.
Circumstances surrounding this attack and why these police officers were targeted in this way.
Well, first of all, that toll has now risen to 42, and authorities here expect it will continue to rise through the course of the day. Now, the Indian Army and its paramilitary wings have been embroiled in a bitter battle with Pakistan-backed militants in Kashmir for the last 3 decades. So attacks on the military are fairly common. But yesterday's incident is the worst attack on security personnel in the region since the start of that insurgency. Now, this kind of attack is also rare because in this case, the militants used an improvised explosive device, whereas in most attacks that we've seen in the last 2 decades or so, they've always mounted attacks using firearms. Now, both India and Pakistan lay claim on the heavily militarized Kashmir Valley, and it has been a bone of contention between the two nuclear rivals ever since they first gained independence back in 1947. Now, yesterday's attack has been claimed by the Jaish-e-Mohammed, or the Army of Muhammad, a Pakistan-based militant group, who circulated a video of the lone militant, a local Kashmiri boy called Adil Ahmad Dar. In the video, he can be seen delivering his last will and a photograph of him surrounded by guns and grenades. Now, the fact that the alleged perpetrator was a local Kashmiri reflects a growing radicalization of local youths in a militancy that was once dominated by Pakistani or Afghani fighters crossing the border. Now, Jaish-e-Mohammed is a designated terror group by the United Nations and Britain, and it is alleged to have links to elements within the Pakistani government. The United States officially labeled the group a terrorist organization nearly 2 decades ago. Now, back in 2017, Washington pushed the United Nations Security Council to designate the group's leader, Masood Azhar, as a terrorist, but the move was vetoed or blocked by China. So for now, Azhar continues to live and operate freely from his base in Pakistan. And as you can imagine, this is a major bone of contention between India and Pakistan.
Mandakini, as you were hinting there, the pressures, of course, are clearly piling on the Indian Prime Minister to do more to shore up security with those tensions now fraying.
Absolutely. In fact, Prime Minister Modi was in Kashmir only 10 days ago, where in a strongly worded speech, he proclaimed that he would break the backbone of terror in the state. So yes, he will be under enormous pressure to respond to this attack, more so because he is seeking re-election in polls that are likely to begin mid-March, in which 850 million Indians will vote to choose the next government. Now, when he first came to power, one of his major campaign promises was a hardline approach to militancy in Kashmir. In fact, the last time this particular group, Jaish-e-Mohammed, carried out an attack in Kashmir in 2016, in which 19 soldiers were killed, India carried out an incursion into Pakistani territory to destroy militant bases. They call this the surgical strikes, and ironically, a major Bollywood film, widely seen as a propaganda film that celebrates the government's achievement against terrorism, is in the theaters this week. So yes, Indians will be expecting a response. The Prime Minister said yesterday that the sacrifice of security personnel will not go in vain. The Foreign Ministry put out a strongly worded statement last night slamming Pakistan for allowing Masood Azhar to operate with impunity. But as far as retaliatory action goes, we'll have to wait and watch. The Prime Minister has already met with his closest national security advisors and is expected to meet his entire cabinet soon to discuss this issue.
Mandakini Gahlot, our correspondent there in New Delhi, thank you very much for that update.
Vakari is a senior journalist. He joins me on Skype from Srinagar, the capital of Indian-administered Kashmir. What else can you tell us about how this all played out?
Yeah, this is a major blast that has taken place in Kashmir almost 2 decades before. It's a major strike in 2 decades in which 18 paramilitary CRPF men were killed and more than 40 are injured. The injured are mostly critical and they have been admitted to the army hospital over here, and the authorities here say, the police here says the death toll may go high. And this convoy had left Jammu early this morning, and when it reached Pulwama in the outskirts of Srinagar, a car bomb took place. Basically, it is a Fidain attack, as the Jaish-e-Mohammed has claimed responsibility for it. They say that one of the militants, Adil Ahmed, carried out the attack, and even they released a video of the militant that was recorded day before, in which he said that he had joined the Jaish-e-Mohammed a year ago and was waiting for this opportunity. So the security in the entire Kashmir has been put on high alert, and the area in the Pulwama area where this blast took place has been cordoned off, and massive hunt has been launched against the militants responsible for the attack. The eyewitnesses say that miles around the place where the blast took place.
Tell us more about the forces that were targeted.
Yeah, basically, they say the target was the paramilitary forces convoy that was coming from Jammu, and they were traveling in buses. And this bus, which bore the maximum impact, around 40 to 50 CRPF men were traveling in it, and most of them, and a majority of them, suffered injuries, and 18 of them have lost their lives, and several of them are battling for their lives in the military hospital.
So, how do you anticipate the government responding, especially considering elections are fairly soon?
Yeah, basically the elections are due here in Kashmir, in Jammu and Kashmir, and even the parliament elections are taking place in April. So this is a major challenge for the Indian troops over here who recently, in recent months, killed over 50 militants in Kashmir, and they were claiming that they will finish off these militants in a few months, and after that elections will be held. But this blast has given a strong message to the Indian troops that the militants have given a strong message to them that they are present here in large numbers and can strike anytime.
Fayaz Vakari, thank you very much for the latest there from Srinagar.